Um, Hello. Uh, Today I'm gonna talk about something that's very close to my heart. A few of my friends know this about me, especially those who have been in my life in 2019, 2020, that period. Um, so I was in Kochi during that period, and I was part of a group of people called Busking Kochi. Busking as in Busking, Busking Kochi. I believe it was founded by Sreeram. His Instagram is Ankoli. He's a dear friend of mine. Um, and what we used to do is we used to go to public places like parks, mostly parks, and write poetry for strangers. Um, I'm pretty sure like many of you must have seen reels and stuff like that on Instagram or TikTok where people do this. There are busking poets all over the world. But for me, it was the first time that I um, had ever like, heard about this. It was through Busking Kochi, and it was the first time I was able to create art for strangers. There were a bunch of people in the group. We had singers, we had people who played musical instruments, people who drew, who are artists, beautiful artists, and that too different. What do you call that? Different methods. Some people used watercolor, some people just used sketch pens, some people used charcoal, some people used pencil, and of course there were the poets. That we had typewriter poets and pen and paper poets. I was a pen and paper poet because I couldn't afford a typewriter, and it's definitely an investment. It's a piece of history. It's vintage. It's expensive, but it's also very deeply personal. It's your instrument. Um, but yeah, so that was Buskin Kochi, and I was active. I think in the year 2019, before COVID. Yeah, before COVID, I was doing my postgrad in English literature during that time, um, and it was a wonderful experience. Um, I have so many good memories related to that, and one of them is the connections that I made through that group. To this day, uh, a very strong standing relationship is with Sreeram Ankoli, who was a big part of Busking Kochi, who is still a part of Busking Kochi. I'm not sure if the group is very active these days, but we stay in touch through our WhatsApp group. We know each other and we drop texts sometimes about events that may be taking place or people that can go attend. If something is happening, if someone is hosting something or presenting something somewhere, like we try to show up for each other. I haven't been able to do that for the past many years because I'm not in the city anymore. But yeah, I just felt like making a video about Busking Kochi, sharing a piece of a happy memory that I had. And in I haven't written for a stranger in a very long time. Uh, Usually how it goes is you sit down, have a 5, 10, maybe 15-minute conversation with the person about something that they want to talk about, that's something on their head, something that's bothering them, or if they don't have anything like that, or if they don't feel comfortable sharing anything of that sort, we just ask a few questions, like what is your perspective on life, or what is your perspective on relationships, we start with like, what do you do these days? What are you doing right now? Who are you with? Um, who do you consider very close? How do you define this relationship that you have with this person that you mentioned? So you build on those kind of things. This is my method of doing. Different buskers have different ways of approaching or creating art for the people that they sit with. For me, it is usually talking to them and trying to find any metaphor that they use during the conversation, or any metaphors that come to my head when they talk about their experience, and I usually build on that. That is how I used to write poetry for people. Um, and during COVID, we were active during COVID because we had this 3 to 4 days of Instagram um, campaign of sorts where we tracked all the requests that were coming in, and a few selected artists would get on a call with them or text them, reach out to them. So they the if you wanted a piece of art for yourself, a personal piece of art, you would contact the page. You would let them know that you would like a piece of art, like a poem or a sketch or a graphic, something like that. And then we would add you to a list that we have, and then we would assign, or people will take up, like on our WhatsApp group or something. I don't remember. We used to claim, like, okay, I'm gonna meet with this person and create some art. Like, I'm gonna do this. Like, I'll take care of this client of sorts. And then we would reach out, and then we would update the Excel sheet, keeping the others informed. Like, this person is already in touch with this artist. They're having the conversation. Sometimes we have referrals like, okay, this person might be better suited for the other artist. Like, it's not really my thing. And of course, we have to be conscious about any triggers that we may have. So things like that. It was That campaign during COVID was really helpful for the clients as well as uh, for me. For me, it was especially when a time when you cannot reach out to other people, um, meet them in person. It definitely acted as a good area for socializing, and I really enjoyed that. And I still remember there's one once this was before COVID. We went to a literary festival that was happening in the city, and we had a small booth where volunteers, like artists, would take turns and sit. Like, I think Sreeram sat there for the whole of 2 days. I only sat in the evenings of both days or something like that. And people used to like come in the morning, leave by afternoon. Someone would come in the afternoon, leave by night, stuff like that. And I got this one dad and daughter who came to talk to me, and the daughter was very young. I think she was 2 years or 3 years old or something. And I, being not a very kids person, I would say, to have that conversation, to be very playful and stuff, I focused on talking to the dad. And we spoke about his dreams for the daughter, and it was a beautiful conversation. I I was 21 years old at that time, and the conversation was, I think I was 21 or 22, and the conversation was really beautiful because he everything that he dreamt for his daughter was all the good values that he wanted his daughter to have. um, to be kind, to be honest, to be helping others. And never once did he mention anything about her getting this particular job or her excelling in life this way or that way. Like, he was more focused on her becoming a good human being, doing good things for others and for herself. rather than um, I don't know, being very focused on her academics, or like, oh, I want my daughter to be a doctor or an engineer. Nothing like that. I'm sure he would have them, but he never discussed it with me. Like everyone has, I believe every parent would have some dream or the other about their kid's career or anything, but um, he he did not project them. It seemed like he wanted to have a very open conversation about. He had clarity on what kind of person he wants his daughter to be, rather than what kind of job she does or what area of life she goes into. And the conversation went really well, and I wrote a poem for him. Uh, a poem for him. Uh, it was I don't have the poem anymore, but I remember writing it to him, and then he told me his daughter's birthday was coming up, and I put a reminder on my phone uh, around the time 2 weeks or something before the birthday, which was like a couple of months after, like after we were having that conversation, and I took down his address as well, because I used to write letters during that period of my life to send it to my friends. Like in the age of WhatsApp and everything, I still try to write them. I haven't written a letter in a while, but I really enjoy writing letters, handwritten letters, and sending it. The waiting, the happiness when they get it, and they're like, "Oh my God, I got a letter from my friend." Like nobody does that anymore. So my idea was to write a letter to him around the time of his birthday, around the time of his daughter's birthday, and remind him of the conversation. I think we spoke about like me writing letters, and he said, I would love to get a letter from you, and around this time to remind myself of this conversation or something like that. He brought it up to me, and I took down his address, and I wrote the letter, and I sent it around the time like when the reminder came up on my phone. And once he got the letter, I had included my phone number in the letter, and he called me, and he said, "Thank you so much for remembering to write to me." And it was such a it was a beautiful memory that he cherished. He has never been on the receiving end of a busking piece, and he really enjoyed speaking with me, and he was glad that I reminded him of that conversation in my letter and stuff like that. So the beautiful experience that it was, the whole story, like meeting someone, being a small significant part of their life in some capacity, was really good. It felt really good, and I cherish that memory a lot. It was, yeah, it was really good. Okay, sorry, I heard some noise outside, so I thought my roommate was home. Okay, so I am very grateful to Busking Kochi and Sreeram for um, giving me that experience, that happy memory that I have in my life. And it's busking is a very emotional experience. It is exhausting because you're actively listening to someone, you're trying to build something of value to them, and things like that. And um, I remember Sriram telling me once that, so I was going through, like during my busking period, like when I used to busk for people, I've busked for like, I don't know, close to 50, 60 people in my life, both online and offline. And when I write those poems, what I find is that I don't, I'm very happy with what I've created, but I always feel like there could be some fine tuning that I could do. When I write for myself, or when I used to write for myself, or when I used to write something just like that, not for anyone in particular. Um, I usually go back to it, fine tune it, change some words, add some phrases, remove something, restructure it. A little bit of editing goes into it. But when you're busking, you don't really get to do that because you're, especially when it's handwritten, especially if it's typewriter written, it is what you create in that moment is what you give. There is no going back, there is no tweaking, there is no slight editing, fine tuning. Nothing really happens. It's very raw, and you're sending it out to the person for memory. And it is, I found it, I found it very difficult because not always was I giving it my best work, and I was very disappointed about this. I kept hitting a wall where I would be feeling like, oh shit, I could have done this better. And that slowly started affecting while I was doing busking. I used to second guess the thoughts that I have when I write them. I am very careful not to mess it up further. And that used to affect my writing very much. So that conscious, being very conscious about the language that I use and how I portray it and stuff like that. And I brought this up with Sreeram because he is much more experienced in busking than I am. And he told me busking is, though you're giving it out to someone else, it is also a practice for you to write about different things. You draw inspiration from your external world, not just what's happening inside you or in your thoughts. Because when you're writing for yourself or for like for alone, you usually end up drawing inspiration from something that's happening in your life or something that's been bothering you or like that's going on in your head, an epiphany that you may have had, any realizations that you have had. It's always centric on you. It's easier to draw inspiration from your emotional output. But when you're drawing it from someone else, especially when having a conversation, when you don't know the person, when you don't know the different relationships that that person hold, the complexities of it, the intensities of it, um, and 15-minute conversations can only pull in or give you so much. So I found it like it was like a further difficulty level extra. And Sriram told me it is what you do during busking is it's practice, it's honing your own skill, you're practicing your skill. And do not feel bad that you're not giving your best. What you're doing is for yourself and for the other person. You're practicing it. You don't have to hit 100% all the time, but you should always be conscious on how you write, that you don't do the same patterns over and over. You are, in fact, taking a closer look at what you're writing and trying to improve it with every person that you work with. And that stuck with me for a while, and that really helped me to write better. And with writing is a skill, and just like any other skill, it needs practice. And since I haven't written in a very long time, at least not good enough things that like I used to back in 2020, 2019, it feels like ages ago. It has been quite a number of years, and it feels like I was a very different person back then. And I worry if I can write like that anymore. And maybe poetry is not for me anymore. Like I may have it might be something else. I don't know if poetry is always, but I love poetry. I want to go back to it. There's no denying that. All this to say, busking Kochi has been a very significant part of my life. An amazing bunch of people. I love busking Kochi, and if I move back to India, if I move back to Kochi, I hope to be a part of the community again. I hope to do busking with other people again. And it needn't be Busking Kochi. It could be other group of artists, the next generation of artists that may have come up in Kochi. I don't know the literary art cultural scene in Kochi anymore. Um, but when I used to be there, it was thriving. Before COVID, it was amazing. It was beautiful. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to share that. Thank you so much. This is my emotional support Teddy. Um, I don't think I've named him yet. Or maybe I haven't, I forgot. I never called him by his name. Rupert from Stewie, Family Guy. Okay, fuck it. Alright, thank you. Bye.